Sam was excited. He skipped his shower, grabbed a to-go bottle for his coffee, and ran down the hall toward the offices. Orbit was already there in his holographic form with the holodesk open and ready for the call. Sam pulled over a stool and looked into the waiting glass. "All right. You said they are all okay?" "Yes, sir. The team has made some major findings. The Brumus is in orbit of Vitalia, and all crew are accounted for." "Oh, good. A part of me was worried they were left for dead." "There was a few incidents, biological incursions. The crew is healthy now, but the world does have a heavy viral and bacterial load," Orbit said. Sam looked back into the glass. "You said they are fine, though. Is Callie ready for the call?" "Yes, sir. Putting us through now." The holodesk started glowing. The shimmering static of light focused, revealing a real-time 3D image of Callie. "Hello, Sam. Oh my God, did Orbit already give you all the news yet?" Sam shook his head. "No, just the basics. You are all well?" Callie nodded, her hair bouncing under the goggles she used as a hairkerchief. "Yes, we almost lost one of our knights. Cookie and grape juice made up a working vaccine. Saved the guy." "When you return to the Clouder, is there a risk of transmission?" Callie looked away from the hologram, rolling her eyes. "Well, about that, we don't plan on returning alone." "What?" Sam asked. Callie motioned to someone out of screen. A mottled green, black, and brown creature with reptilian features entered the view. It had bones mounted to his head, and the skin seemed to grow over the edges. Callie pointed at Sam. "Sam, say hi to Stubborn." Sam waved. Hello? Nice to meet you." Sam mouthed a what at Callie. Stubborn's chest flashed bright blues and yellows. The holodesk translated for Sam. "Hello, human Sam. Callie and Curator have told me about you and your voyage across the darkness. You brought them to our world. We owe you our thanks." Sam looked at the creature in awe. "You're welcome." Sam looked at Callie. "Tell me, what happened there? Sounds like you made some friends." Callie smiled. "Yes, we probably would still be stuck on the mountain without them." Callie flicked a file over the transmission to Sam. "Check this shit out. We hit pay dirt." Sam opened up the file. Orbit looked through it as well. A rendering of the Tower of Fangs inflated over the holodesk. "You made it to the source of the anomaly?" "Yes. Turns out some sentient race came through this neck of the universe and decided to run a long-term genetic research project." Sam spun the tower around, zooming in and out. "What kind of project?" "Forced evolution through design. This place is a genoforge. Species after species spat out, fighting as long as they can until they die out. The tower records the entire world, keeping track of which species last the longest and modifying them." Callie patted Stubborn on neck. "Our friends here are the 6th rendition in sapient saurians." "Sounds like a problem. How are you keeping up with the new creatures?" Sam asked. "We turned it off for the time being," Callie said. "The Vatalians made the choice. We left it up to them since it's their world." Callie threw up her hands. "Oh my God, check this shit out. We figured out something big." A file came across, sparking a totem to appear on the holodesk. Callie highlighted with a pointer. "The totem! They were made just to take care of planets like this. We figure one of the worlds broke or something and someone altered them to be sapient. The ones here are dumb and on autopilot." Orbit touched the file and scanned it. "Sir, this has implications." Sam looked at the purple glowing boy. "Yeah, they lied. They know about this. Not only do they know about this, but I calculate that they are hoping you will help them learn more about this." Sam twisted his face, thinking. "Okay, let me run through this. They know the world is dangerous and why. If you think they want more info, why don't they go?" Callie spoke up. "Our success was 100% a team effort, Sam. If I didn't have Curator, we would have failed. If you hadn't made sure I had preservers on the team, we would have failed. If we didn't make friends with Stubborn here, we would have failed. I looked over your briefings on the Great Arm peoples. They barely worked together." Sam thought about it. "Okay, so they might have tried and failed like they said. They, however, have some totem from a world that what?" Orbit spoke up. "I think Curator and Callie's assessment is correct. The odds are one of these Genoforge worlds broke. The world would have then stabilized, and that coupled with the failing electromagnetic storm would have allowed them to land and study the world. Sam smiled. And that would leave them with questions about the other worlds. Sam raised a finger. What about the Gallic? Why didn't they just devour these worlds? Callie threw over another file, a protein hologram illuminated over her head. We thought about that in Cookie ran simulations. Everything here would eat Gallic for lunch. He even thinks the sequences that code for their protection were designed specifically against the Gallic. Well, good. We got more weapons in our arsenal then. Sam pulled up a feed from the Brumus, looking over the planet. Well, Stubborn, what are your thoughts? He asked. The Vitalian lowered her head back into frame. I have talked to the mothers about this in depth. We wish to learn more about your people and see the dark for ourselves if you would let us. Callie smiled and rubbed Stubborn's neck. Callie looked back at Sam. Curator has been teaching them about the Clouder Accords. We've built roads, hooked them up with tools. Hell Cookie already has a site marked out for a zoo. Stubborn flashed colors. I wish to visit the Twain. Petition for my people to join the Clouder, if that is permissible. Sam looked at Orbit. Orbit pulled up a text file and showed it to him. Sam looked back at Stubborn. Yeah, we have it in the charter. Proper medical procedures need to be carried out to make sure everyone is safe, but yeah, I invite you to come visit Stubborn of Vitalia. Stubborn's head flaps flickered back and forth and she nuzzled Callie. Colors erupted on her chest. Happy, curious, excited, were translated via the holodesk. Callie, I thank you for the update. Send over the files, and I will have the AIs look over them. This has proven super exciting. You did good work. Callie bowed her head. It's an adventure. I love it. Thank you for choosing me for the assignment, Mr. President. Sam laughed. Don't give me that shit. Thank you for staying alive. I need to let you go, though. This has sparked a wave of projects that need to be started. Understood. Callie terminated the transmission. The holodesk deactivated, and Sam looked at Orbit. Find out what you can. I want to know who or what built that place. Orbit turned his eyes away for a moment. Already running the files. There are clues we found already. Sam put up his hands. And those clues? Orbit pulled up holograms of lines of code. The language they are written in. Out of all the species we have made contact with, only one appears to be lingually related. Orbit put the two computer languages beside one another. They are distinctly different, but no more so than what would be expected from several thousand years of lingual drift. Sam looked at the two separate languages. I see it. There are similarities. What species is this from? Orbit pulled up an image of the hagfish. Their holy book, sir? Sam nodded. Alien space religion, obviously. Jahadeen was sweating as he practiced his one-handed handstand. Muscles tense and twitching, he was holding the pose with his eyes shut when he heard the dojo door open. It was late in the cycle, and no class was scheduled anytime soon. He thought maybe it might be his grazer student, and listened for his 4 feet pattering on the mat, and heard none. He could feel someone or something in the room, but they made no sound. Jahadeen opened his eyes. 5 Goadur floated around him, staring down at him. Jahadeen lowered his legs nimbly and rose up into a standing pose with one fluid motion. Can I help you? 4 of them were covered in layers of black armor, but the one that spoke was wearing a shiny silverish set of chains and plate. We have watched your sessions, human. We request you analyze our species and offer insight. Jahadeen looked them over, walking around the silver floating alien. Tell me about this metal. Do you need it for life support? Can it be taken off? 2 of the black-armored Goadur went over to the window and lowered the blinds. The silver one undid several intricate clasps on its helmet and opened up a faceplate. The chest piece hissed open and in sequence the arms unhinged. The Goadur slid out from the floating armor and descended onto the mat. The creature was balled up. The portions that were in the arms unfurled into 2 sets of 3 appendages. The chest ball opened up, and 2 sets of legs ending in 2 sets of feet each extended. The creature stretched, its full height hampered by the 10-foot ceiling, causing it to hunch over. The creature spoke with gurgles and gasps. Its floating armor translated for Jahadeen. "You now see us as we truly are. Few ever what you see now." Jahadeen bowed. The exposed creature attempted to imitate it, lowering its multi-eyed, mandible-mouthed head toward the flower. Jahadeen raised up slowly. "May I approach you?" "Yes." Jahadeen walked up and extended a hand. "I am Jahadeen of Trudao. Who asks of me to train them?" The creature tilted its head, its mandibles chewing air. The armor translated the gurgles. "Survivor of the city of Basalt. Nice to meet you, survivor." Jahadeen made a quick movement, flicking his right arm and wrist. Survivor spun its fan of arms to deflect. Jahadeen pulled back before contact. Quick reflex. The human turned and walked over to the corner and picked up a set of boxing mitts. He walked back and raised up his hands. "I need to test your strength. Would you mind hitting my hands?" Survivor pulled its hands together and threw a punch, with each of the 3 right hands hitting in sequence. Jahadeen took it with a smile. "Decent. Care to try again?" "I did not hurt you?" Survivor asked. Jahadeen shook his head. "Not at all. I need to feel your strength. If you can do more without injury, please do." Survivor closed its numerous eyes, and after a moment it opened them and began a flurry of attacks. Jahadeen accepted them each in turn, catching each cascade of punches in the mitts. The 3 hands of each arm set hit, delivering a thump, thump, thump. Survivor kept it up, hammering the human's hands. The sweat from Jahadeen's earlier workout was drying. He looked down at the Goador's legs while taking the punches to his hands. "Throw in some kicks too if you can." Survivor didn't miss a moment and started throwing legs into his hands. Jahadeen had to duck under one and then spun back up to continue blocking. "Good. Can you go faster?" Survivor took in breaths through the air ports on its side. Its pace quickened, hand after hand, and leg after leg swung out to strike. Jahadeen then jumped back. "Enough." Survivor paused, breathing increased. "What is your assessment? How delicate are you?" "I do not understand." "Clarify." Jahadeen took off the mitts and set them down on the mat. "If we spar, will your body break?" Survivor looked over at the others and then back at the short human. "I am Survivor. I am here to find out." Jahadeen raised up his hands and motioned for the Goadur to continue. Survivor lunged forward as he requested. Jahadeen ducked under a flurry of 4-fingered fists and grabbed the upper right arm. He placed his left foot just in front of a set of right feet of the alien. Then he tugged, and Survivor tumbled onto the mat. Survivor pulled in its sprawled limbs and looked up at the human towering over him. "That is what my people wish to learn." Jahadeen looked over at the suits of black armor. "You want to learn to throws. You float." Survivor rose back up to its full height. "Yes. Our homes let us float. To be able to throw as you do would give us a tactical advantage." Jahadeen approached the 4 in black armor and walked around them. "Does it hurt to be so confined? You must have to contort yourselves to fit in there." Survivor wavered back and forth, eyeing him. "No. We enjoy tight spaces. Comfort in small quarters." Jahadeen stood, looking back and forth from the armored to the unarmored Survivor. "These armored shells, they inhibit any potential throwing. I don't see how it would benefit you." Survivor walked over and looked down at him. "It is a new way to see things. We don't do your throws, it never occurred to us. We punch, we kick, or we shoot things. Your throwing and grappling are difficult to process." Jahadeen thought about that insight for a moment, walking over to his desk. He grabbed a data slate and returned over to the 5. "I have time slots here, here, and here." He pulled up a hologram of his calendar. "I will have to charge extra, as you will be taking up a full class." He looked over them, attempting to gauge reaction. "Are you interested?" The 5 looked at each other, and Survivor answered. "We have minimal clams. We would have to trade. We are not merchants. We sold manure to pay for our docking rights. We do not have much more to barter with." Jahadeen walked over to the silver armor, admiring it. "These are quite intricate. The metal lacing and design work is exquisite." Survivor issued a low growl. "We do not sell our armors. You dare insult us? Jahadin shook his head. He lifted his datapad and punched in a query. A hologram floated of a necklace. Humans have admired jewelry for centuries. I think you have a very marketable skill. Do you think you can produce things like this? He handed the datapad over to Survivor. Survivor flicked through images of rings, chains, necklaces, and earrings. Some of these show merit equivalent to some of our young. You wish for our young to make trinkets for your people? Jahadin laughed. No, if you made something like those, except with your skill levels, you would have something worth enough to pay for dozens of classes. You would live like kings here. Survivor looked back down at the datapad. He continued flicking and stopped at large necklace of jewels and intricate chains. This one is decent. You would buy one of these from us. Jahadin shook his head. No, I have no need to flaunt. However, half of my species is female and they love shiny, beautiful things. Survivor looked over at his comrades. We have materials on the ship. Make up prototypes. We will see if these human females will buy this jewelry. The four in black raised their arms and made a fist. Survivor turned back to Jahadin. Thank you for testing me. You have made a proof of concept. The elders will be excited for my report. Jahadin bowed again. It was an honor. Survivor reciprocated. The preserver awaited for his turn. He looked through his isolated, secure network and opened up the files pertaining to Francis Claiborne. The human had given him numerous earthly species. Unique DNA sequences, proteins, amino acids, and all of them configured in novel ways. He was having a field day, his fingers dancing across the keys as his mind played with all the possible configurations. Then Orbit rang his comm. He shut down the network and answered, Is it my turn yet? Yes. You have been cleared for transmission time to Vatalia, commencing in 3, 2, 1. Orbit went quiet, and a hologram appeared on the preserver's desk. Cookie stood in light form, looking at him. Yes, what is it you want? The preserver fidgeted his 3 hands. Cookie took note. You are nervous. You are up to something. Quiet. You know they watch? Yes, and what of it? The preserver paused and focused his words. I have a job. I need help. I need your help. Cookie turned 2 of his eyes away from the preserver, signaling disinterest. I do not want to help. I have my own work here. You will be outshadowed soon. I do not care of your work or your prestige. Do you require currency? Clams? Cookie refocused his 3 eyes on the preserver. Yes, I do. My zoo requires materials. I need capital. The help you need pays? Yes, in multiple ways. The preserver replied. All right, I will hear you out. What is it you are doing? We would have to talk in person, and I will need several of your brood to assist. You have a lab established on World? One of Cookie's eyes wandered as interest started fading. Of course, I'm not damaged. You wish to use my lab and require more of our kind? This sounds like more effort than I am wanting. I really am busy. The preserver clenched his 3 hands in anger. A human hired me. He has given me numerous samples of Earth DNA. He is wanting us to make him something. I need help. Cookie focused again, all 3 eyes. You have my interest. We will talk sums upon your arrival. Good. You made a good decision. You will find this quite intriguing. Cookie let his eyes wander. Maybe. Until your arrival, I'll be busy with my work. Please don't bother me prior to our meeting. The preserver clenched his hands again and terminated the call. Cadence Claiborne, sister of Francis, born of the same batch in a planetary mother forge, had acclimated to life among the woman born. During the war, she was wounded and left behind as her company lifted off in retreat. Her brothers and sisters were executed on sight, recognized by their outfits and gear. The fear that was filtered out from most of her Vat-born brethren rose strong in her. She limped her way, hiding, ducking, and scavenging the ruined world. There, amongst the ruins of a terraforming colony, she was found. Cadence was living off dead crops and wearing the clothes of the dead to keep warm. A survey team found her, healed her up, and through a misunderstanding and blind luck, she was thought to be someone MIA. Cadence disappeared into the mass and confusion that was human society. She found 3 others with similar tales, easily recognizable to one another, and they started a family. The Claibornes met every Christmas for dinner, two started families, but Francis and Cadence re-entered what they knew. Cadence was working guard detail on a military prison transport. With the new regime, things were being restructured, consolidated, and the old was being phased out. 3,000 prisoners were being moved from the dilapidated Dron Orbital Prison Station to the newly constructed Noble Deterrent Center on a moon orbiting New Way. She adjusted her armband to cover her Cross of Lorraine tattoo. She did her rounds through the prison cells. Mike approached her, walking down the main aisle. "Cadence, we're about to drop out of Rift." She nodded. "A little early still to be at Noble." "Yeah, I heard from Brewer. It was planned for us to stop at Asmodium for refuel and supply. It was hush-hush. He only just now found out." She bobbed her head, thinking. Mike looked her over. "I heard we may get a few hours on the station. You want to grab a drink with me?" She chuckled. "Invite me back to your quarters with all your bunkmates after?" Mike laughed a little. "I've got some credits. The station has a hotel on it." "Keep dreaming those dreams," she winked. "Maybe." She continued walking her rounds. Mike watched her step away. A long-bearded prisoner watching from his cell laughed. "Keep shooting your shots, bud. You'll get one day." Mike turned and glared at the prisoner. "Quiet. No talking, inmate." He turned and continued the other direction, baton at the ready. Captain Aurelius was sitting in his chair, his crew working diligently at their posts around him as the Leviathan dropped out of rift space. The holoscreen illuminated the system. Asmodium was there, near the central star, drawing out plasmatic fuel. Aurelius pointed at the screen. "What are all these ships?" Lieutenant Drawl performed ID scans on the thousands of ships orbiting Asmodium Station. He looked up at his captain. "New Anglicans, sir. Here for the same reason as us. Their charters say they are stopping here for fuel, en route to a pilgrimage site." Aurelius looked them over. "All right, bring us in. Let them know our priority status." Drawl sent over the request files, and Asmodium Control gave them clearance to bypass the line and dock. Half the crew had been given permission for shore leave. Mike met his buddy Drawl at the docking port and entered into the station. Immediately they were hit by the noise and smell of people. They stepped off the walkway arm and into a mass of people in light blue milling inwards toward the central shops. Mike hit his buddy on the shoulder. "Let's hurry before the booze runs out." Drawl looked back behind them. "No Cadence?" He laughed. Mike's face soured. "No, she volunteered to stay aboard." Drawl shrugged. "Her loss." The fuel operator noted the storage tanks nearing full. His hand traced the lines of the cross tattooed on his wrist. He nodded to himself, steadying his resolve. He reached up and touched his ear communicator twice, sending a near imperceptible chirp over the common channel. He kept on task and started removing the titanic nozzles from the side of the Leviathan. Numerous light blue ships picked up the chirp and started drifting inward toward the docks. Mike and Lieutenant Drawl were half drunk, talking to two young women with perma-dyed neon blue hair. "So then Drawl here dropped the can into the monkey tank. They flipped out." Mike laughed, telling the story. The girls were big-eyed and nodding to the story. Then one touched her ear and tapped her friend. The two women pulled knives and stuck the two enlisted. As Mike and Drawl fell to the ground, the mass of pilgrims closed in, hiding the bodies. Cadence heard the chime and went into motion. She walked the hallway, making eye contact with her compatriots. They joined step behind her. A man stepped out from his quarters and was quickly taken around the neck with a choke line. The group continued steadily. Cadence stepped onto the bridge and opened fire. Her group followed her lead and laid the captain and crew out. Captain Aurelius died in his chair, never seeing the shot from behind. A second team of 3 let the first group of armed New Anglicans aboard the Leviathan. They held the doors open as the blue-shrouded combatants stormed inside. There was no parley. Every enlisted aboard not bearing the Cross of Lorraine was executed. 15 of the pilgrims bearing rifles stepped onto the bridge. Cadence was looking over maps on the holoscreen. She looked up at the men. "Cell Block B, Field 56. The one in the lead nodded. "Yes, ma'am. We will go get him." The group of pilgrims left back into the ship. One of her fellow traitorous enlisted stepped up beside her. Miss Claiborne, no transmission was sent out, no AI presence detected. As far as anyone knows, the Leviathan will have just vanished. She slowed her breathing, taking deep breaths with her eyes closed. Good. Get the prisoners onto the station and our people onto this ship. Do it as speedily and orderly as possible. She looked at the floating hologram of Asmodeum. When we are ready, I will give the order. Yes, ma'am, he said and walked back over to a vacated console. Cadence had been watching for 2 hours as a stream of people filed up the walkway, and prisoners exited out shoulder to shoulder with them. The two lines were kept separate by a gap of air and lots of shouting by her soldiers. The door to the bridge opened up, and her elite stepped in, pushing a handcuffed, bearded prisoner dressed in pink. The one in the front spoke. Is this the one, ma'am? She walked over and looked at the man. Josiah Seagraves? The prisoner looked up at her. Does it matter? She looked at his haggard eyes, his wrinkled face. It does to me. She pointed around the room at the pilgrims now occupying the bridge. It does to them. The manifest says you are him. Is it right? He nodded. She looked at the men and gave a curt nod. One reached over with a key and undid the handcuffs. She smiled at the old man. Privateer Captain Josiah Seagraves of the Rapier. Your band of pirates were responsible for disabling and robbing 17 Hugh freighters, killing 48 military personnel, detonating the Haggard Trust Building, and robbing the Fenway Corporation headquarters. Is that correct? Seagraves looked at his free hands and then up at her. Yes, that is why I am on this ship. She shook her head slowly, staring him in the eyes. No, if that was all, you would be on the station. You are here because of what you did with your loot. You never told the arbitrators where you stashed it, did you? He stared back at her. No, and I'm not telling you either. She gave a small smile. You don't have to. The galaxy was at war. No one made it out with their hands clean. She stared a long moment. I know what you did with the loot. His eyes widened. You spent what was spendable in every edge port. You bought food, medicine, and machinery from anyone willing to part with them and some who weren't. You were our Robin Hood. She looked around the room. You gave to our church, fed our people, dropped off orphans, and helped us heal the wounded. This is why you are still aboard this ship. Josiah looked around the bridge at the people staring at him, and a tear escaped his left eye. He looked back at her. I don't know who you are, but you can't just steal in Rift Vessel and expect to get away with it. Get these people back onto their ships. Get them out of here before anyone figures this out. She raised her hand for his silence. He quieted. Cadence walked over to the holoscreen. The Leviathan was several leagues out from Asmodeum. She looked at the station displayed and lowered her hand. The man across the room at the bloody console toggled a switch, and the station detonated, plasma now loose, arched out from the star and into the station debris. She turned and looked at him. I joined the church near the end of the war. I heard the legends of you, and that motivated me to get back into the stars to help. She approached him. Do not worry about these people. We will all be safe. We will be safe because of how wrong you are. She turned and looked at the display as the ship jumped. A large yellow vein glowed with red alert symbols around it. There is a place we can go and get away with it. Josiah looked and shook his head. You want to banish us? Take us to the far end of infinity? That's insane. Cadence closed her eyes and raised a finger. I joined the church because they hold mirror views to myself. They wish for the daughters to return, so they can join their fellows in the bliss. She opened her eyes. I wish to rejoin my mother, and I have received missive from my brother that she has returned. You still have a choice, Mr. Seagraves. Do you wish to accompany us? She turned and replayed the detonation of Asmodeum. Or do you want to share the bliss of your fellows? Josiah straightened a bit. Fuck it. Let's go to Twain. She looked over at the man at the bloody console. Maintain heading. Let me know when we enter the rift channel. He nodded. She looked back at Josiah. Care to join me for a drink?